On Another Level Book Club presents OAL Arthur's Babble. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I am so excited to be here with you.
Thank you so much for having me, Sharon. I appreciate you.
Hey, thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for having us.
You're welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Best gift to an author or any author is to read the book and leave a review.
Hi, I'm Leandra Simone.
Good evening. Welcome to On Another Level Book Club, Author's Babble, where we are getting up close and personal with Marc Grossberg, the author of The Best People, A Tale of Trials and Error. Marc, welcome, and thank you for joining us.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here. I really am. Thank you.
So we're going to have Marc open up with a reading from his current book, The Best People. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, The Best People, A Tale of Trials and Errors is a legal drama and social satire set in glitzy meritocracy we call Houston. And there's lots of clever lawyering and judicial misconduct and clashes between the country club set and the cafe society, a giant Ponzi scheme, and plenty of larger than life characters that can only exist in the great state of Texas. And at the center of it all is Patty Moran. And Patty's a complicated guy. He came to Houston from Brooklyn to be a cop, but he soon discovered that if he wanted to achieve the kind of recognition and respect that was so important to him, he had to choose a different path. So he went to night law school. When he got out, he found out what just about every lawyer finds out, and that is they don't teach you how to practice law in law school. And in his first trial, he had a humiliating defeat. But then things picked up, and a woman named Estelle Cook came to see him. Now, Estelle was very unhappy. She had learned that her husband had been having an affair with the wife of a young associate in his law firm.
Mm-hmm.
She wanted a divorce, and she wanted to get a lot more than she could get in a community property settlement. She was a doyen of the country club set, and he was a senior partner in a major downtown law firm. And so she came to Patty, and Patty made an appointment with the senior partner, with the managing partner of James Cook's law firm. And because he had an idea as how to get her a lot more money than she could only get from James. So that's where I'm going to pick up the reading.
Okay.
Patty was escorted to a corner office. The brass plaque announced Tom Frost, managing partner. He was let in. Patty had never been in an office so well appointed. Gilt-framed portraits hung high on the walls, past managing partners, some smiling, some frowning, but all looking down. Tom Frost appeared young in Patty's mind to be managing partner of a big law firm.
Mm-hmm.
His closely cropped hair had a little gray. He wore a striped tie, a white broadcloth button-down shirt, and a navy blue coat. He barely glanced up as Patty came in. He gestured to a chair in front of his desk. Patty said, "You know, I represent Estelle Cook in her divorce with your partner." "I do," he said. "Estelle is a lovely person. I'm so sorry about all this." And Patty said, "I believe you mean that. You're probably wondering why I've come to see you." "Yes, I am." "Well, I'm handing you something, and I request that you read it while I'm sitting here."
Mm-hmm.
What is it, Mr. Moran?" "It speaks for itself, sir." Patty watched. Tom Frost read, lightly tapping a very large Mont Blanc fountain pen. Finally, he raised his head. His eyes were slits. His eyebrows lowered. "Have you already filed this? Are you asking me to accept service?" "I haven't filed it yet, sir." because it occurred to me before I did, you might appreciate the opportunity of settling before it becomes public record. Mr. Moran, this is outrageous. Mr. Frost, your partner, James Cook, was having an affair with an associate's wife. Cook sent her husband out of town on deposition so he could screw his wife. This law firm let that happen. Estelle Cook's marriage and her life fell apart. So if you're talking about the conduct of Mr. Cook and this law firm, I agree. It is outrageous. There was silence. Frost looked into Patty's eyes. His face hardened. If I'm supposed to be frightened, Mr. Moran, I'm not. It was this next moment that Patty had practiced over and over and over again. His final shot. If this didn't work, there were too many variables. He had to play it perfectly from here. I guess you're telling me I should have just filed and waited to hear from you. Okay, I'm done. Patty closed his briefcase and got up. He walked toward the door, and making it appear as an afterthought, he turned back, not all the way, just so his eyes could lock on Frost's. And he said, how's this going to affect your recruiting? Frost said, how could it affect our recruiting? Patty turned, facing Frost head on. In a faux drawl, he said, well, I know you, that is, this law firm has the judge in its pocket. If you don't settle, I reckon he's going to throw out my suit against Walker and Travis, and I'm going to appeal. An appellate court may decide one way or t'other. I think I'll win, but the reality is I might not. That's the stuff nobody can control. Then Patty dropped the draw. But one thing I do know, this is going to be a case of first impression, a very high profile one. For me, high profile is great. Win or lose, my name gets around. And this is a pretty juicy case to have my name attached to. Tom Frost was hearing the Moxie street fighter from Brooklyn. Patty had come out of the bell with his gloves flying. He continued the flurry. So I'm a winner no matter what. But that's not true for you, Tom Frost. The allegations will probably make the Houston Chronicle, the New York Times, and the Wall Street Journal. And you can bet the appellate decision will be a reported case in the Texas Law Review, the U of H Law Review, and yes, even the Harvard Law Review will do case notes on this novel case. Who would have thought Patty Moran would make those law reviews? But along the way, Walker and Travis becomes a bathroom joke, and it will have happened on your watch. We don't yield to threats, Mr. Moran. You think this is a threat? Give me a break. If you were representing my client, you'd be delighted to come up with a novel theory to increase her chances for justice. We don't sue other law firms, Frost said with a pointed, derisive air. Well, aren't you special? Let me assure you, we do. And also, despite your self-righteousness, if a big client came to you and asked you to sue another law firm, you'd do it in a heartbeat. Returning to his chair, Patty said, listen, Mr. Frost, my client is not just another plaintiff to this law firm. We're talking about Estelle Cook. Frost's posture changed. You're right about Estelle. I would never demean her. For the first time, Patty felt a favorable shift. He went in for the kill. Okay, sir, here's the deal. Her husband, Mr. Cook, will give her the River Oaks home, a 70-30 split of the community property, and membership in the River Oaks Country Club. And here was Patty's novel idea. And this law firm will pay her $5 million for facilitating the affair. I need a signed deal by 3 o'clock. There was a pause. You expect us to hand over $5 million and get Cook to agree to a 70-30 split in less than 6 hours? Oh, yeah, I sure do. And I know you can do it. To tell you the truth, I can't really say I'm expecting settlement. I have plan A and plan B. Plan A is we settle at 3. Plan B is filing amended pleadings naming Walker and Travis as a co-defendant at 1 minute after 3. I have somebody waiting at the courthouse. So even if I get hit by a truck before then, it's filed. But if you choose plan A, I thought I would speed up the process by preparing a settlement agreement. Why are you in such a hurry? If I give you overnight to respond, you'll have over 100 lawyers staying up all night to figure out how to silence me. 6 hours may be too much time. Frost said, "I have a duty to discuss this with my management committee." Frost had Patty wait in a conference room. It had a southern view. The day was clear and Patty could see all the way to the Texas Medical Center. At 2 o'clock, Patty began to get fidgety. He started pacing. Then he heard a knock on the door. "Come in," Patty called. Tom Frost entered. Frost spoke. "Mr. Moran, the law firm and James Cook?" Patty's heart raced. I'm stopping there.
No.
Yes, you have to read it to find out what happens next. Okay.
That was
Okay.
only a teaser. Like,
Yes. Okay.
really? Okay. All right. Let's get into the interview.
After we go off, I'll tell you what happened.
Okay. So let's talk about Marc Grossberg. Who is Marc Grossberg? Tell us a little bit about your background.
Okay, so I was born in Houston, and I've lived here all my life. I went to public schools, U of H for undergraduate school. Then I worked a year, then Texas for law school, and I clerked for a judge on the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit. And I came back, and it's hard to believe, but at the time, the Houston law firms weren't hiring Jewish people, and I happened to be the first one that the large law firms hired. It was they hired women, but not to make partner at the time. They didn't hire black people at all. It was a different time. But anyway, so I was a tax lawyer, practiced for more than 50 years, but I always wanted to write a book since I was 16, and finally. When I became of counsel to the law firm, I made this a very serious project, and it came out last October. Okay. And my first reading was in Dallas at yes, at Interabang Bookstore.
Okay.
And unfortunately, 5 days after I read there, a tornado destroyed it, but they reopened, and because it's a lovely, wonderful place. You get coffee and read books and stuff. It's nice.
Right. So,
anyway,
you wanted to be an author.
Yes.
What determined whether or not you went into law or actually focusing in on becoming an author?
Okay, so I came from a family that didn't have very much money, so I knew that writers didn't make a lot of money. Right. And I read a lot, and a lot of the books I read were about lawyers, about Clarence Darrow and mysteries, and were the lawyers. So I thought, well, maybe that's a pretty good thing to do. So I went to law school, and then I had a family and responsibilities, and you have to have billable hours. So I put writing on the table, and at a certain point, I decided to. My children were grown. They were responsible for themselves. I didn't have any more responsibilities of counsel, so I decided to pick it up off the table and go with it.
That's awesome. Congratulations. So this is your first book?
Yes.
Where did the origination, where did you come up with the thought, the plot, the characters when it comes to this book?
All right. Could sound embarrassing, but anyway, I went to a family event one year at the Marriott on the West Loop in Houston. And I had to go to the bathroom, and I went to the bathroom, and I heard female voices. And I said, must be coming through the vent. And then I realized it wasn't coming through the vent. I was in the women's bathroom. So I said, I got to get out of here. They're going to think I'm a pervert or something. So I get home, and I said, what if somebody overheard a conversation they weren't supposed to hear because they were someplace they weren't supposed to be. So that idea came to me, and I just sat down, and basically I wrote the whole story out, the main characters and everything. But it took me a long, long time to get there.
So now I'm interested in what was the conversation? What conversation did you overhear in the women's restroom?
Oh, it wasn't. I don't. Just two women.
Oh, okay.
And, the conversation in the book, and that scene doesn't take place until about 3/4 of the book is over.
Okay.
But it's an important conversation that she heard.
Okay. I will get to it. I think I'm on chapter 3 or 4. So you don't have to give me any more information. I don't want you to spoil it for me, but I'm in the process of reading the book.
Okay.
So, talk to us about the writing process. This is your first book. You raised your family. You're in the end of your career, or you're deep into your career. What was the process of writing a book and juggling a full-time career?
Okay. I did it all wrong. This with the second book, I'm going to try to do it right.
Okay.
With me, it was a very solitary thing. I would write it and rewrite it and rewrite it. I probably did 100 drafts. Somebody was interviewing me, and they said, "If you did 100 drafts, it's not your first novel." It's kind of a joke, but so what I should have done is I should have been taking workshops and having friends read and give me comments and stuff like that. And I also should have, learned about how you write a novel. I'd read so many, but I wasn't that critical of understanding the process and how you structured it. So it took me a long time for it. It's a pretty good book now, but it took a long time. And so this next one hopefully has to go a lot faster.
Typically, when someone rewrites a book, they have ghost readers read the book and provide input. Why did you rewrite the book so many times? Did you decide to change the characters? Were you not happy? Why so many rewrites?
Because it didn't come off the pages right for me. The story was there, but there was a lot of stuff that wasn't there. Like the first draft was all dialogue. I told the story through people talking, but I didn't describe anything. So then it was all in my head, people talking, and then as I revised, I realized that the people who are reading it can't read my mind. They don't know the things that I didn't put in there, so I had to describe those things. And it wasn't my number one priority, so it took a long time. But I understand the process better, and I would encourage anybody who wants to write anything, whether it's a book or a personal essay or getting your grandmother to tell her story so that you can preserve it for the rest of your family. I'd encourage people to do it, but to take classes to learn how to do it. In Houston, there are plenty of classes. I'm sure in Dallas, there are plenty of classes that you can take that will help you, one, get it out on paper, but two, get it in a structure and in a form that people will want to read.
Okay. So tell us about, we have a lot of people who watch us weekly who have a desire to be a writer. What would you tell your young self, and even those that's watching us now, what word of advice would you give them in becoming a writer, or some of the things that you've overcome as a new writer?
Okay. One, read, which I did anyway. But two, write about what you know. Write about what you know. And so, this book is about Houston, and it's about law, and that's what I knew.
Right.
That's what I could write about. I wonder about people who write science fiction, but even people who write science fiction, they have an idea, and they borrow from their present and somehow create another world.
Right.
But it all comes from within themselves. So trust your experience, trust and listen. If you're talking all the time, you can't really hear that much.
Right. So do you have any writer's quirks? I know some writers, they got to have M&Ms, a pickle, and a Diet Coke. Do you have any strange, unusual habits that you do, or things you must have when you're in your writing zone?
I wish I did. No, I don't. I wish there was some, oh, if I do that, then I'm going to get 25 pages today. No, I don't have any of those things.
So tell us about the response you've gotten from your book. Critics, your book reviews, negative and positive. How have your response been to the different types of feedback you've gotten from your novel?
Well, it's been very gratifying. The reviews are 72% are 5 or 4 stars, and the ones that I read have been, not all of them have been good. Some of them have been, they didn't like the characters. That's ridiculous. And then, but most of them have been, very articulate and praising. Those are the ones I like the best, of course. But I learned from one of my favorite reviews was a woman who gave it a 3. She said I'd have given it a 5, but I didn't like some of the language,
Okay.
And I respected the way she wrote that review. But one person, somebody, obviously you don't know the people who are writing the reviews, wrote this, like 2-page review that was really, she really got into it, and so it's funny, strangers, it's kind of thrilling for strangers, people you never met, who get into it and see stuff, and people see themselves, and the characters are all flawed, and nobody's all good and nobody's all bad. Well, there's one guy who's all bad and somebody else who's all good, but just about everybody's flawed because they're human beings.
Right. I like that. What about the marketing process? How did you get your word out about your book?
Okay. All right. So now the publisher sends out stuff to people in the publishing trade. Then I hired a website designer, a publicist, a social media consultant, an email consultant, and there are all these people, because I didn't know how to do any of that stuff. I mean, I thought when you write the book, that's it. Well, it's kind of just the beginning,
right?
But then, I love the book clubs, and in this life in the time of the coronavirus, the virtual book clubs give me an opportunity to meet people I wouldn't otherwise meet. I had a book tour, Dallas, Fort Worth, Houston, Austin, San Antonio, Los Angeles, San Francisco, Asheville, North Carolina, and New York City, in a fine bookstore in New York City. And I, in Fort Worth, it was a rainy day, and I don't know many people there, and 2 people showed up. But in Houston at Brazos Bookstore, 150 showed up, or something like that. In New York, about 50. So it's but it was fun, and it is fun. It remains fun. Somebody said, are you going to have postpartum depression? Well, if so, it hadn't happened yet.
So you have another novel that's coming, you're working on, correct?
Yeah. Yes. So a lot of people, when I wrote this book, I thought it was one off, and people who read it said, oh, well, obviously there's a sequel coming. Well, it's not as obvious to me, so I haven't figured out what that story might be. But the characters are good enough to do that. But I had in my mind another book, which is a cold case mystery based on 2 actual deaths, but it's all speculation and invention. The story is. So
that sounds
we'll see how that goes.
Sounds like a series, a TV series.
Yeah.
Okay, so tell our viewing audience, where can they contact you and where could they purchase your book?
Okay, so I don't know if Interbank still has any copies, but you can get them on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, either hard copy or ebook. so that's where you can get the book. How can you contact me? It says markgrossberg.com on there, but if you want to send me an email, it's mark.grossberg@gmail. So go ahead and do it. I'd love to hear from you.
Okay. Great. So at this time, we're going to transition. We're going to play a little game. We're just going to get to know you, Marc Grossberg, a little bit better. It's called This or That, okay? So I'm going to call out 2 items, and you have like 10 seconds to choose one or the other, whatever your preference is. The first thing that pops in your mind, okay? While we're doing that, the viewing audience will be posting questions that they may have regarding your book or yourself as an attorney/author. Okay, you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Let's see. Cats or dogs?
Dog.
Tea or coffee?
Coffee.
Day or night?
Night.
Ooh, hamburgers or hot dogs?
Ooh. Oh, it depends on the mood. I have to choose. All right, I'll make a hamburger, but okay. I love them both.
Singing or dancing?
Oh, I do Zumba class. I guess singing though.
Okay.
Zumba's great though. I'm the only guy in the class. It's terrific, but it's online now.
Fruits or vegetables?
Vegetables.
Okay, let's look at.
But I usually eat red meat, so it without the fruit or the vegetables.
Eat neither one, huh? Protein.
Yeah.
Let's look at a TV. Let me see. The Walking Dead or Lost?
Or what?
Lost.
It would be something other than The Walking Dead.
Oh my gosh. So you don't like
I like Stumptown, which is a wacky show on it's a detective, a private detective who's got PTSD in Portland. It's wacky. I like it.
Sounds interesting. Okay, lastly, money or fame?
Fame.
Fame. Okay, thank you. Okay, let's go to our viewers and see if there are any questions. Let's see. Stumptown. Yes, that's the name. Someone was clarifying the name of the show you just mentioned. Do we have any questions? Okay, while we're waiting on questions, tell us again how you can be reached and where can your book be purchased?
Okay. You can reach me at marc.grossberg@gmail. And you can purchase it Amazon, Barnes & Noble, online, maybe at Interabang if they still have some in stock.
Okay.
Because I like independent bookstores, and but definitely online.
Yes.
Oh yeah. And if you can't, just put in my name or the name of the book, and it'll pop up.
Yes. Goodreads and Google Play are also two avenues to get the book as well.
Yeah, Goodreads is a good place to go. What I like about Goodreads is they ask you what books you're reading. And so I get ideas of what to read.
So the characters in the book, how true or how much are they based on your life? Your attorney, characters are attorneys. Tell us about.
All right. Okay. Only 3 of the characters, and they're minor characters, are based on real people. One is a female attorney, divorce lawyer who's passed away, and there's only good things about her in there. The other is a restaurant owner, and in the book he's called Luigi Gante, and the name of the restaurant is Elegante, but in truth it's Tony Vallone, and the restaurant is Tony's. And then there's a Jewish tax lawyer named Elliot Foxman, and it's me. I gave myself a cameo role, so if they ever have a movie, I can say, I can do that. I know how to do that. The rest of the characters are totally invented. They are composites of people that I have met, even though they're invented. I have little snatches of things from life, and it's fun. Making up characters is fun, and I would say that in a sense, it's all autobiographical, because when I am writing dialogue for a character, I am that person. Whether it's a male or a female or whatever their ethnicity is, I am that person when I'm writing it. And so it becomes autobiographical, even if it's not.
Okay. We have a comment from Granny Dotson Filecard. She says, my daughter has worked with Marc at Thompson and Knight for years. He's an amazing person, attorney, and author. I read this book in 2 days. Oh, wow. You should ask him about his amazing trips and family. He really enjoys life. Oh, tell us about some of the trips. I'm jealous.
Well, in 2015, I just started life all over again. Okay. And I ended up with a motto that goes something like, I go wherever my green light tells me the intersection might be interesting, living in the now.
Love it.
The other piece, which is much harder, is I tried the consequences of all the choices that I've made in life. So I shoulda, coulda, woulda, or why can't I do what he did, or that sort of thing. So in the spring of 2015, somebody said, where are you going this summer? And I said, I'm going to New York. And I didn't know that until I said it. So I got an apartment in the West Village in New York for a month, and an Airbnb in Brooklyn for a month.
Nice.
And I stayed away from people I already knew and just lived it. And it was amazing. And I would keep notes of what I did, and my landlady, I would send them to her, and she says, I've lived in that place 14 years. I've never seen any of these things. Tell me more. In the following year, somebody said, are you going back to New York? And I said, no, I'm going to Berlin. And so I got an Airbnb in Berlin and stayed there for a month and just did Berlin for a month. Nice. And it was amazing. I will say this. So then Berlin's supposed to be the club town of the world. Mm-hmm. And it was the night before I left, and I hadn't been to a club. So I call this place that's supposed to be the best one, and they don't open until midnight. So I take a nap, and I get there, and there's this black guy from Brooklyn was the chief bouncer, and these skinheads from the Ukraine. Mm-hmm. And he and I become buddies. Okay. So he tells me, go up, have a good time. So I go there, and it's 12:30 and there's hardly anybody there. And then I look up, and at 1 o'clock, it starts getting fuller and fuller and fuller. And no one is over 35. Most people are under 30. And it's EDM, electronic dance music. Nobody's dancing with anybody, and finally about 4:30 or so I leave, and the chief bouncer tells me, he says, come back tomorrow night. I said, well, I have a plane to Houston on Sunday. He says, look, you don't have to stand in line. We know you. And he looks at the skinheads and like that. So the point of that is that you need to just follow your instincts. Sometimes it'll be a good choice. Sometimes it'll be a bad choice. But that's how you experience life.
That's right. Okay, we have a question here from Latif Phillips. Do you take ideas from sitcoms like Law and Order or what's going on in the news?
For that book, no. I just had an idea for a story. I need to get something to drink. You can excuse me for a second. I just had an idea for a story, and I followed it. There's some news in it, but anyway, I'll be right back.
Okay. So just make sure you grab a copy of this book. It's a great book. I'm down. I think I'm in chapter 3 or 4, but it's it's an attention grabber from the start. I mean, it starts off with drama, excitement. So make sure you go ahead and get the book. You can get it on Amazon. And what's the name of the bookstore in Dallas again? I'm sorry, my mind.
And Terabang. And also, Granny Dotson full card. Nicole Olajuwon is one of the best people I've ever known in my life. I call her my fourth daughter. So thank you for chiming in there.
Okay, we have another question from Ms. Joy Campbell. What would you title your autobiography? Good question.
I think I would title it Going Wherever Your Green Light Tells You the Intersection Might Be Interesting, Living in the Now. But I don't know if that's an autobiography as much as it is just sort of a long personal essay. Mm-hmm. If I was to write a true autobiography, it couldn't be published till 100 years after I was dead.
Really?
Because
Could it take you that long to write it?
Yeah, if I no, it wouldn't take me that long to write it. You do stuff over your lifetime, and some of it's good stuff, and you want people to know about, but some of it's not such good stuff. So I wouldn't.
So what happened to accepting the consequence of your behavior? Let it all out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I could do that, but I would say it was about somebody else.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Publish it on another name, and then you use your put characters in there. No one will never know it was you. Well, except those that took part in it. Never mind. Okay. Yeah. Do we have any other questions? If we don't have any questions, one more time, tell them where you can be contacted and also where you can get your book.
Okay. You can contact me at marc.grossberg@gmail. That's easy. And you can buy the book at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, just any online bookseller, Walmart, and also in Terabang in Dallas. If they haven't sold out, it's a nice place to visit anyway. I think you get a kick out of it.
Thank you. And when can we expect your next novel?
Let's say 2 years.
2 years.
Well, I have to write it, and then I have to get it published.
Okay.
I think it may take less time to write it than it will to get it out.
Okay. So just make sure during your process, you have other people. You may want to reach out to some book club members to do a little brief reading and get some feedback on it. Remember, that was one of the mistakes the first time. So we're here.
Then please, that's such a great idea. Please email me and tell me that you wouldn't mind doing some reading as I'm going through this.
Okay.
Oh, that is so good. Thank you, Sharon.
Mm-hmm. Those of you out there that are interested in kind of reading and giving them some input, reach out to him. He's given his email address. Marc, it has been a pleasure. I'm so excited. I have started the book, but now I'm trying to I need to know what happened. I might need you to go ahead and give me that, because you just really left us hanging there. But that was a good one. Great marketing strategy. Okay.
Yeah, well, it's so pleasure. All are wonderful, and I feel honored to have been invited. Thank you
so much. Do you have any last words for our viewing audience?
Just, go wherever your green light tells you the intersection might be interesting, and live in the now. Don't forgive yourself for anything that you wish you had done and didn't, or did do, and just forgive yourself. Be happy.
Great advice. Great advice. All right. Well, it's been a pleasure. Join us next week, same place, same time, where we will be chatting it up with another author. Thank you again for joining us, Marc. You have been great, and I'm so interested in finishing the book now. And
you're a fabulous interviewer. So
thank you so much. I will need you to let me know what happened. Okay, thank you for joining us again. Just remember, reading gives us someplace to go when we have to stay where we are. Stay safe, stay put, and please be careful out there. Have a good evening.
Good night.